Howdy gamers, I'm back and feeling significantly better than I was in the last couple of videos, so today I figured it's time to take on the hardest castle boss from every Mega Man game, 1 through 11. Only problem is, we do have to find out who those bosses are, so here we go. Quick disclaimer before we get into things as usual, the dock robots do not count as castle bosses because they technically are not inside of a castle, and neither do the sub-bosses like Base for Mega Man 7. The robot master fights do not count either, and I'm also not going to be taking glitches into account when choosing the most difficult castle boss, but I still may bring them up because that's what I do. Also, more and more people are falling victim to my epic trolls, like when I call all of my commenters stupid, terrible Mega Man players, and the only thing I have to say about that is if you subscribe and like all of my videos, then you are exempt from any of my unnecessary bullying and ridicule. Yep, that's right, I'm going to continue calling my comment section horrible Mega Man players, but if you're subscribed to the channel, you get to instead join in on the fun and call all the non-Tooterp subscribers Mega Man noobs. And who doesn't want to tell the comment section they're a bunch of noobs? We all know I do, but that's long enough for a disclaimer, so let's get started with the video. Mega Man 1, home of the first Wily Castle of all time. This castle features 4 separate castle bosses, with only 2 of them really posing any kind of a challenge. Obviously, this bubble boss is not hard like we discussed in the previous video, and the Wily machine, despite looking intimidating, is easy peasy lemon squeezy, whatever that means. The Yellow Devil is by far the most notorious creature from this castle, and the majority of Mega Man noobs would probably say this dude is the hardest, but I'm gonna try to change everyone's mind. Yes, this dude is very hard, especially the first time you face him, and doubly especially if you're not using the select button glitch, but there's one factor about this fight that makes it impossible to claim he isn't easy, which is the simple fact that his pattern is the exact same every time. This is why people who have beaten Mega Man 1 multiple times all think the Yellow Devil is trivial, and if you learn this pattern one time, you will never have problems with this dude ever again. I know a bunch of dummies in the comment section are probably gonna say something like, but that's stupid, you probably use save states in the select button glitch to learn his pattern, which is why you think he's easy. But no, the first 5 times I beat Mega Man 1, I actually didn't even know about the select button glitch, nor did I have save states, which is probably why I find the game to be so easy nowadays. Despite being overly prepared for any challenge Mega Man 1 gives me, there is still one castle boss fight that throws a challenge my way once every blue moon, being the Mega Man clone. This fight still isn't ridiculously hard or unfair or anything like that, but you need to make sure you have full health going into it because you can very easily get cheesed. And you do not want to get cheesed, trust me. One of the rare intelligent commenters once told me that they used the bomb weapon in this fight, which actually might be a good idea just because the clone will also have that horrible weapon at their disposal, but I still think it is a difficult strategy without the select button glitch. As far as I'm aware, the best strategy to kill this guy is to use the fire weapon, which not only does a good bit of damage, but also spawns a little fire shield around you for a second, which could take the clone out if he's inching too close. Other than that, I don't have much advice for this fight other than get good and good luck. Mega Man 2, the best NES game ever created, had an upgraded version of the Wily Castle now complete with 6 castle bosses. Picking the easiest in the last video was incredibly easy thanks to the Gutsman guy, but picking the hardest may prove to be more challenging than any of the actual boss fights, just because, well, these bosses are actually all pretty easy. The Evil Room in Wily 2 is the second easiest boss fight in the game, so luckily we won't be seeing much of this place, and the Dragon Dude is also fairly easy as any Mega Man player would know, but people start to act weird whenever the Wily 4 boss fight gets brought up. This fight certainly isn't easy, especially compared to the other battles, but I wouldn't call this fight difficult either. It is of course more of a timed puzzle than a boss fight, but I'll talk more about this thing in just a second. The Wily machine from Wily 5 is a super fun fight, but it's even easier than the Wily machine from Mega Man 1, and the alien hologram Wily can be challenging if you have bad distance judgment or don't know how to select bubble lead in the menu, but I mean, come on guys, you should be able to take this guy out. Back to the Wily 4 puzzle boss though, this thing is certainly the hardest, but it isn't really as challenging as people make it out to be, it's just annoying. The main problem with this fight is managing your crash bomb ammo because you have just the right amount of bombs to take this boss out the intended way, and God forbid you miss a shot because then you'll die and have to grind all that ammo back just to try again. And nobody likes farming in Mega Man, so you don't want to do that. Luckily, there are a couple of tricks to actually save ammo during this fight, which does make it a lot easier, and honestly, if you understand how to solve the puzzle, you really shouldn't miss any of the shots anyway because they aren't too hard to land. So despite this castle boss being by far the hardest castle boss in Mega Man 2, it is still fairly easy if you aren't a complete noob, which honestly describes Mega Man 2 as a whole pretty well. Mega Man 3 was the first game to introduce sliding, which ended up making all of the boss battles harder due to their patterns expecting you to perfectly incorporate the slide into your Mega moveset. Luckily, that's only really true with the Robot Masters and Doc Robots because the Wily bosses are strangely the easiest part of the entire game. We all know this turtle guy is too easy to consider, and this weird triple Mega Man clone thing is also fairly easy if you use topspin. And by the way, I know I said I hate topspin in my worst weapons video, and lots of people assumed it was because I don't know how powerful it can be, but I do. Trust me, I just hate using topspin. Gamma's second phase can also be one-shot by topspin, but you can also pretty much one-shot it by mashing Snake Man's weapon really fast. The second phase of Gamma is honestly extremely easy, and I've always thought the first Wily battle was a lot more challenging, but it turns out the use of Snake Man's snakes again makes this battle a walk in the park. This only leaves the Yellow Devil as the hardest castle boss for Mega Man 3, which I guess is true if you don't know the easy every time trick, but if you are aware of that trick, then I guess most of Mega Man 3's castle bosses just tie. I don't know, this is a hard one because they're all really easy and have tricks to make them even easier, but I'm still gonna go with the Yellow Devil as the hardest castle boss for Mega Man 3 just because I also did not know about the easy every time trick until I'd already beaten the game like 50 times. Mega Man 4, twice as many castles and twice as many castle bosses. It turns out every single boss in the Dr. Cossack castle is extremely easy. We have the Easy Ugly Moth, the Easy Ugly Square, the Easy Ugly Doctor, and oh wait, I forgot about these cockroaches. I hate cockroaches, and yes, that's what these freaks are called, but I must admit, as much as I'd like to call these guys the hardest castle boss in Mega Man 4, I think the only challenge is actually the spikes, which doesn't really seem fair in this consideration. I mean, I don't know. I hate these guys, but they don't really do anything, so you know what I mean, right? Anyway, I already made a video on stupid spikes, so I think that's a completely different category of difficulty, and without the spikes, these guys could even give the Easy Ugly Moth a run for its money as the easiest castle boss in Mega Man 4. Taking a look at the Wily Castle, we have Metal Daddy, who we all know is easy, but I've talked about this guy a lot, and I'm getting tired of him, so go watch my Met videos if you'd like to hear roughly 25 minutes of me overanalyzing Mets. Who doesn't want to see that? Both the Wily Machine and the Wily Capsule are really fun fights with appropriate difficulty, which only leaves Taco trash. Yeah, this freak isn't necessarily a demanding boss fight, but it seems the most technically challenging out of all of them, plus he looks freaky, and that makes it hard to concentrate on playing Mega Man. There is a weird glitch in this fight by using Drill Man's weapon against him, but even with that glitch, it's still a strange fight to deal with, so I'm giving the Trash Man the award for the most difficult boss in Mega Man 4. Mega Man 5 also has two separate castles just like Mega Man 4, but I'm gonna go ahead and let you know none of the boss battles in Proto Man's castle are the hardest. It's all just different forms of Dark Man, and while some of them may be slightly challenging, you really shouldn't be dying to this guy regardless of what form he decides to take. Big Pets is the first boss you challenge, and while this fight is certainly awkward to get used to, it's not impossible, and frankly, it's not even hard. The Circle Guy is also not really hard at all. I mean, if you die to this guy, get good. Seriously, I mean, how do you die to this guy? If you comment saying you die to this guy, I don't believe you. This leaves me no choice but to claim the Wily Machine 5 as the first Wily Machine to be the hardest castle boss in a Mega Man game. Really, even this Wily Machine isn't an impossible task, but it has multiple phases and does a decent bit of damage, so it's certainly at the very least less easy than every other castle boss. Also, without Beat, the Wily Capsule phase of this fight can be annoying, but only because you have to wait around for Dr. Wily to decide he wants to teleport in range of your attacks, but regardless, this guy is the hardest castle boss for Mega Man 5. Mega Man 6 is the third game in a row now to feature two castles, and also the third game in a row to have 0 challenging boss battles in the first castle. If you don't believe me, let's take a quick look at every single Mr. X castle boss battle. We have this weird thing that just moves around. I mean, I'm not sure how one would manage to find a way to die here, but I'm sure there are plenty of people in the comment section who would beg to differ. But I guarantee you, none of those bozos are subscribed to me. I mean, you should see my subscribers. My subscribers are so good at Mega Man, it's insane. It's insane how good my subscribers are in Mega Man. The Power Piston is the second boss of this castle, which we've already established is by far the easiest, and despite being super epic, Matongar Z is the next boss fight, and while I do love this guy, he's extremely easy to murder in cold blood. Mr. X's big ball is also super easy to kill, but it turns out punching people in their ball is a good way to immobilize almost anyone. Switching over to Dr. Wawi's castle, we start off by facing this overgrown lizard whose only challenge is the awkward hitboxes, followed by this, tank? I mean, the game calls this guy a tank, but it looks to me more like a sentry gun from Modern Warfare 2 got shopping cart wheels put on its tripod, but whatever you want to call this thing, it's still really easy. I didn't want to pick another Wily Machine as the hardest castle boss for the second time in a row, but unfortunately, Wily Machine 6 is just too epic to be ignored. This thing has 3 stages just like the one from Mega Man 5, but I'd argue this machine is actually more difficult than the other one. It's still not an impossible or even frustrating fight, but you do need to use a Sharingan to properly dodge the projectiles while also timing your attacks to avoid being crushed by its giant spikes. The actual Wily capsule has upgraded projectiles when compared to the one from Mega Man 5, but even with the Mega Buster, this should still be a fairly easy boss fight, but I guess Mega Man 6 is just a fairly easy game. Now that we've taken a look at the iconic NES castle bosses, it's time to take a look at the slightly less iconic future Mega Man game castle bosses, but first, we actually have a celebrity cameo from Eddie himself. What do you have for me this time, Eddie? Mega Man 7, the first mainline Mega Man game on the Super Nintendo, and the first Mega Man game to break the 2-castle addiction hindering the last several entries. We already know this Gutsman guy is the easiest boss since you can just throw his rocks back at him, but it turns out some people didn't know about that, which is why you should always subscribe when watching these videos. I mean, you don't want to be a horrible Mega Man player, do ya? You better subscribe then, or else you'll turn out just like my comment section. The next boss in the castle is this turtle dude, but I mean, this guy is clearly not a challenge either, which only leaves both versions of Dr. Wily's boss fights. This thing is by far the coolest Wily Machine design I've ever seen, but unfortunately this fight leaves much to be desired both in terms of difficulty and variety. But as if the Mega Man 7 developers heard my complaints I just made, they made sure to make one of the most difficult Wily battles of all time in the next stage with the Wily Machine 7. This battle is one of the reasons people are always saying Mega Man 7 is too hard and that it's a bad game, and to those people, I just want to say, first of all, get good, and second, the final boss is supposed to be difficult, you doofus! Come on, give your head a shake, you can't be thinking like that. Ya baby. This final boss certainly delivers on difficulty though, and is probably the hardest Wily Machine of all time. Even the final Wily capsule has the most difficult to dodge projectiles in the history of Mega Man. I know some people make dodging these projectiles look easy, and I may even be some people, but let me tell you, it's not easy. This fight is by far the hardest castle boss in Mega Man 7, and maybe the hardest castle boss of all time. You know what? I'll actually go ahead and say it. This is the hardest castle boss of all time. Yeah, that's right. I said it. I'm crazy. I don't care about anything. I'm a complete madman. You don't want to mess with me. Mega Man 8, a game that's certainly great. What, were you expecting a joke here or something? Come on, that's not nice. Mega Man 8 is a great game. As we talked about in the easy castle boss video, we already know the auto-scroller boss is one of the easiest boss battles of all time, and the Green Devil actually gives it a run for its money. The Wily Machine battle in this game is still difficult, but significantly easier than the one from Mega Man 7, which does give the illusion that this fight is easier than it really is, because it is still hard, just, you know, not Mega Man 7 hard. But despite all that, I think the actual hardest castle boss for Mega Man 8 has got to be a Titamino. I hate this ugly freak. The first few times I played Mega Man 8, I didn't even know what to do in this battle, and I just started playing other Mega Man games. But once I did figure out what to do in this battle, I just got angry because this boss battle is stupid. It's not even technically that hard, but something about this fight is really annoying, and I hate how ugly this thing looking at me is, so frick this stupid fight. I hate it. A Titamino is the hardest castle boss for Mega Man 8, and if you disagree with me in the comments, then your breath probably smells like rotten fish. Unless you're subscribed, of course. I mean, obviously all my subscribers know how to properly brush their teeth. Oh yeah, Rockman and Forte, the best video game ever created by mankind. Unfortunately, this is the easiest entry in the entire video because obviously the hardest castle boss from this game is the multi-part King boss battle. Seriously, what were they thinking when they made this a fight? What madman thought this piece of game design would be a good idea? Every pixel of King Stage 2 gives me serious PTSD from the amount of times I've gotten a game over and had to restart. I want the man responsible for creating this level locked up behind bars as soon as possible. We can't let this freak stay out on the streets with the rest of mankind. But I still love Rockman and Forte though. Perfect video game with amazing level design. Mega Man 9, the return of both 8-bit graphics and laughably easy castle bosses. I talked about this first boss battle in my last video and how I don't know how it's even possible to die here, which made a few people angry in the comments, but I like it when people get angry in the comments, so if you die here, you're still terrible! You're even worse than you were in the last video! Unless you're subscribed, of course. Unless you subscribe to this channel and like my video, then you're great. The giant shark boss battle is one of my favorites of all time, but with the use of Splash Woman's trident, you should be able to win 100% of the time. Some people have a lot of trouble with the egg-spitting Wily machine, but I really do think this guy is easy, and I'm not even trolling. Maybe it's just because I've beaten this boss a ton, so the egg physics are locked into the depths of my brain, but I mean, I really don't find this guy too challenging, I'm sorry. But you know who I do find challenging? Yo mom! The Twin Devil boss. I know you can just pause cancel, but unless you are tasked, pause canceling in one cycle is incredibly difficult. And without pause canceling, this boss fight is just complete AIDS. I hate this boss fight, and it is clearly the most difficult castle boss from Mega Man 9. Mega Man 10, in my opinion, has the hardest castle bosses in the entire series, but I'm gonna save you guys some time and go ahead and let you know the Block Devil is the hardest boss. I hate this boss fight, I hate the devil, and I also hate Mega Man Devil, so this is just a recipe for a disaster. I would say this fight is a bit easier than the Twin Devils from Mega Man 9, but it's all stupid, and I really hope Capcom does not make another devil boss in Mega Man 12 if that game ever comes out. Because if they do, I will upload a video of me crying and peeing my pants and throwing up and having diarrhea. Mega Man 11's Wily Castle sadly only has 3 boss battles, which is very depressing for a multitude of reasons. I still do love Mega Man 11, of course, but the lack of content inside the Wily Castle is one of the few complaints about this game I can really get behind. Of course, we know this freak from Wily 2 is not the hardest because I already said he's the easiest in the last video, and I may be a troll, but I'm not that big of a troll, guys, come on. I wouldn't troll you that hard, come on, guys, really? I'm not really a troll, guys, come on. The Yellow Devil can be a bit challenging, at least without the use of speed gear, but I mean, even if you just use your Mega Buster, you should be able to beat this guy 9 times out of 10. Okay, maybe more like 4 out of 5 times, but I mean, that sounds a lot weirder to say, so I'd rather just lie to you guys and say 9 out of 10. This only leaves the final Wily boss, and while this fight can be difficult, I guess, it's mostly just fun. The only reason I'm even putting this fight above the Yellow Devil is because at the very end, if you aren't using your speed gear, Dr. Wily can actually be fairly hard to hit, and I'm very curious to see if it's even possible to beat this fight without using any of your gears, but maybe that can be a topic for another video in the future. So if you want to see if it's possible to beat Mega Man 11 without speed gear, comment down below and maybe I'll try it, maybe I won't. We'll see, but I don't know how to read, so don't get your hopes up. But until then, I'm gonna have to say Wily Machine 11 is the hardest castle boss from Mega Man 11, which is much less impressive when you remember there are only 3 castle bosses in Mega Man 11, but whatever. Those were the hardest castle bosses from every Mega Man game, 1 through 11. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, do not forget to do all that stuff like liking and subscribing and commenting and all that, because if you forget, I will cry. A lot. It will be awkward. Don't let this happen. Don't make me cry. Nobody wants to see that, you jerk.